Okay, we are back, and I've been teasing you guys the entire show about how I'm going to tell you how I made money for the NFL draft. For those of you that follow me on my newsletter, and you can join the newsletter anytime you'd like to at sportstradingsystems.com. Go and join the newsletter right now. It is free. For those of you that follow me on the newsletter, as a special bonus this week, I sent out free trades to everybody on my list. Now you can go, there's a link. I'm going to put a link for you guys listening on the podcast. You're going to have to just go to the website and look. But for those of you that are on YouTube, I'll put a link below that'll show you the article that links to my newsletter. I published this in a public space so that you guys can go back and check the date of when it was published, so you know that I'm not making this up, and you can see that the picks and the choices that I made for the draft, the first round, which happened on Friday night. Which happened on Thursday night. I apologize. So you can go back and see exactly what it is I did. So what I do, for those of you that don't know at home, is I am called the sports trader. Now what I do is I trade sports the same way you trade stocks. So for an average gambler, and a gambler who probably looked at the draft on Thursday night, there were bets you could make that were, 50-1, 35-1. There were a lot of bets where you can put a little bit of money and try to win a lot. And I don't believe that that's the way to actually approach sports. I believe the way to approach sports is the same way that I would approach an investment that I would make as a business, or the same way I would approach a stock investment that I would make, and which would be I would do the analytical research that is involved in learning everything I can about the company, about the stock, about whatever it is I'm investing in, as far back as I can. So historical back-tested data is always the most important thing in the world to actually have whenever you're trying to make a decision. I would use the same logic if I was trying to find, if I had met a girl and thought, oh, it would be so nice that this girl's so beautiful, this girl's so sexy, I would like this girl to be my girlfriend. Now imagine if I meet this girl, her name is Carol. It's a terrible name, I know, but it's the first one that came to my mind for some reason. I meet this girl, her name is Carol. Carol's amazing, she's wonderful, she's like bang, 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 everything about her is beautiful. When she walks across the room, I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful girl right there. That is so sexy. That's the girl I want in my life. She's sweet, she's nice, she does everything for me. I've never met a girl as sweet as Carol, so I start to find out a little bit about Carol as a person. And then I find out in her last five relationships, she broke up with the guy because she was suddenly, spontaneously not happy. I would have to be an idiot to think that I could keep Carol happy, because it doesn't seem like anybody can keep her happy. It's not a knock against Carol. It's probably more of a knock against me than anything else. But that's how I would look at the relationship with Carol. And that's how I would look at any relationship that I was entering into as far as a business relationship. I would go back, I would do the back-tested historical data. I would look at everything that had happened to that company prior. I would look at everything that happened as far as investing in this stock prior. I would look at everything that happened inside that space, inside that business, whether it being tech or a commodity or something like that. I would do the back-tested historical data that is research that is needed in order to make a smart investment. And because I've done that most of my life, I was able to take that type of thinking and take it and utilize it towards sports. And I'm a systems investor. So what I'll do is I'll create multiple systems that allow me to invest a little bit of money here, 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 knowing that each system, of course, like every investment, comes with a small bit of risk. But if I diversify those risks along the way throughout several systems, like, for example, in baseball season, I use 6 different systems. If I were to take that risk and spread it out among 6 different systems, the chances of me developing a profit over the majority of those systems, because they're all systems that are developed off of back-tested historical data, are in my favor. So I use the same principles of what I do for baseball, football, and basketball to create markets inside these sports. I use that same principle on a one-night event called the NFL Draft. It's my favorite event, actually, one of my favorite events of the sports season. I've never, and in full disclosure, I have never invested anything in the NFL Draft because I consider it to be a gamble. But because there is no sports going on, and because I needed something to do, and I just wanted to impress everybody, I took the same principles that I use when I create my systems, and I used it for a one-night only event to see what would happen. I'm not going to tell you the results yet. I'm going to show you what I did, and then I'll explain to you the results along the way. What I will tell you is that I created systems. I created all these patterns. Well, I didn't create them. I found all these patterns and then created systems around the patterns that allowed me to find 4 logical plays. 4 logical plays. And let me show you what they were. Now, and there were a ton of prop bets. I mean, there were so many prop bets out there that you couldn't even keep them straight in your head, to be honest. It was crazy how many prop bets there were. So one of the first prop bets I took was how many wide receivers will be taken in the first round. Now, it was a over under 5.5. So I took, and what I did, honestly, let me tell you this. Just like I would in my other systems, I did a unit allocation that was dedicated to all 4 systems together. So for this, I just did 10 units, and a unit could be anything. So a unit could be $10. A unit could be, for a beginner, let's say you just wanted to try this. So 10 units, how much is 10 units? You could say it's $100. I threw $100 into something to see what would happen. Now, for somebody like me, who's a more seasoned sports investor, you could say, well, maybe 10 units for me might be $10,000 or $20,000 or something like that. So what you would do is you would take, for each unit, it would be X amount of dollars. So let's just imagine it was $100. So for this first prop bet that I found that I tried to invest in, it was wide receivers total 5.5 over under. I thought that there would be less than 5.5 wide receivers that would go in the first round. Now, historically, that's just the way it is. You don't get more than 5 to go. This was supposed to be the deepest wide receiver draft in history. So the odds were really, really coming down to a more of an even. I got negative 150, and I put 3 units on that. Now, how did I decide that I was going to go with this number? Well, I created models. I created 10 different models that were basically like mock drafts based off of historical data. And out of the models that I showed, 80% of the models showed that there was 6 or more receivers chosen in the first round. So, sorry, that should be 6 or less. I do apologize for that. And the odds were 59.88. That's what negative 150 means. American odds can actually be broken down into percentages. So because I had 80% of my models worked to 80% in my favor, and the odds were 60%, I took that as the means were pretty close to each other. So I put 3 units on that. I also felt that the odds of really breaking 6 receivers was not good. So there was a little bit of a feeling for myself in knowing football and understanding the draft, understanding the process, going through and looking for team needs, and understanding the talent that was available and who was really a first-round talent and who was really more, in my mind, a second-round talent. So some of this was the systems and some of this was a feel. If this was really just investing the way I do, it would just strictly be systems. But it would be much easier because you would have throughout a baseball season, you get 162 games. So there's the ebb and flow. Because this was a one evening event and because of the way the data presented itself, I had to approach this slightly different. So again, you'll see what I did here. So let's go to the second prop bet that I took, which was Jeff Okudah as a draft position, 4.5 or under. And I took that as under. 100% of all my models showed that Okudah was the best cornerback on the draft and that he was going to go, 4th or lower. And the odds worked out for that. And of course, that was right. Okudah went 3rd to Detroit. Total SEC players taken in the first round. The most ever, I think, was 15 at one point. So this was 15.5. So the idea was that there was so much talent from the SEC is that they were going to break the record. And teams, NFL teams, when they're drafting, certainly don't give a shit what conference a team comes from. So they're not sitting there going, well, geez, how many SEC players or how many ACC players? They don't care. That's not something that bothers them. It's not something that they think about. So what I did was, again, I just followed the back-tested historical data that I had. My model showed that 80% of all models had less than 16 players that went. The odds were in my favor. I put 2 units there. And the very last thing that I took was total offensive players. The over-under was 16.5. 70% of all my models show that there would be less than 17 offensive players. And 61% was the odds. And I got to tell you, all 4 of the prop bets that you see on here that I use as investments that I put out, all 4 that I put out, the article's linked in. If you're watching YouTube, the article's linked in the bio below. If you're watching at home, I'm sorry, if you're listening on our podcast, you'll just have to go and look at sportstradingsystems.com. But you can see the article below. It's dated, timestamped. You can see that these are the picks that I gave you. I was 4-0 for the first round of the draft. That's 4 wins, 0 losses. But in my business, the way I approach it, wins and losses don't matter. The only thing that matters is how much money did I make. So while I won't tell you the exact amount of money that I made, because I don't think it's important that you would know that how much a unit was for me, but let's just imagine that it was $100. Let's imagine I put $100 in. At the end of the night, I had $167. $164.70. So I made 64.7% on my money in one evening. Now, if you're a gambler, you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't know, that's all right. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's not great. 67% isn't bad. 64% isn't bad. But if you're an investor, and I'm an investor, if you're an investor and you're looking for a new market, sports is widely opening up all across the country. The Congress, I believe in 2018, passed a jurisdiction that basically said that they no longer have control over it. So it's going to no longer be federal. It now goes down to the states. The states are all opening up gambling everywhere because they want the tax revenue. And with everything that's going on with these pandemic that is crushing economies everywhere, you can guarantee that as soon as this is over, these states are going to be opening up things like this that were kind of out there, hanging in the balance, kind of in limbo. Oh, I don't know. Should we let people gamble? Should we let people bet on sports? When they find out that there's going to be some revenue that they can bring in, they're all going to be doing it. I mean, we're already at I think 27 or 28 states, and it was growing slowly. There was a bunch of states that had it on their dockets. Now, obviously, a lot of this has been pushed back because of what's going on with the coronavirus. But you're going to see coming up here in the future that a lot more states, the state you live in, you'll be able to gamble legally, and you'll be able to use that, to use the fact that there's so much new, dumb money inside those markets that you're going to be able to make money off of those people. And I'll be able to teach you how to do it as long as you keep following this channel. And if you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can go to sportstradingsystems.com, sportstradingsystems.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the link below so you guys can go and check it out. And if you want to learn more, I'll be teaching you all sorts of cool stuff here on this podcast. You can just follow the podcast, or you can follow this YouTube channel so that you can learn more about sports trading. My name is John Todora. I am the Sports Trader. It has been my pleasure to have you guys listen to me from wherever you're at out there. I truly hope that wherever you're at, you guys are safe and you're taking care of yourself and the people that are around you. If you're taking care of the people in your family. If you can't reach the people in your family physically, it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone, make some phone calls. You got FaceTime. Stay in touch with people. It's a lonely time for a lot of people out there. So try to keep each other, in your thoughts and your prayers. And of course, in your actual part of your day. Don't lose track of the fact that you're in your home and you're watching YouTube videos, and another day goes by and you didn't talk to your mom, you didn't talk to your sister, you didn't talk to your kids, you didn't talk to your wife. Sometimes you don't want to talk to your wife, but just don't let it pass you by. All right, guys? Like my father always told me, if you want to be part of the 1%, you can't think like the other 99%. I encourage you to open up your mind and expand your horizons and try to make yourself a little more money than you did yesterday. All right, guys? Talk to you soon.